Vaccines, like other medicines, can have side effects, as no medical intervention is completely risk-free. When side effects do occur from vaccination, they're typically mild. Serious adverse events following vaccination are very rare. In the event that a vaccine causes a serious adverse event and injury, the United States has established the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, sometimes referred to as the VICP, to provide financial compensation to individuals that have been injured by a VICP-covered vaccination. Unfortunately, misconceptions around this program make it an easy source of misinformation, and it's commonly used to convince people that vaccines are not safe. Furthermore, the program shields vaccine manufacturers from liability when rare adverse events occur, and some interpret this as proof that pharmaceutical companies cannot be trusted or that they know vaccines are not safe. However, once you understand why the program was created and how it works, you can begin to understand the importance of this program and its necessity in assuring our nation's vaccine supply. In this video, we'll discuss why the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed, and how the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program works, and why vaccine manufacturers are shielded from liability. This story begins in the 1970s and 1980s, when a major vaccine safety controversy was making headlines. The focus of the concerns was the diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus, or DPT vaccine, particularly the whole cell pertussis component. The vaccine was highly reactogenic, causing redness and swelling at the injection site in up to 40% of infants, fevers in nearly half, and more severe side effects like febrile seizures and episodes of limpness in some. Although none of these adverse events were associated with serious long-term health effects, they contributed to increasing public concerns about the safety of the vaccine. Of particular concern was the suggestion that DPT vaccination could cause permanent brain injury. Over the next several years, numerous studies found no causal link. The alleged vaccine-induced brain damage was later found to be a genetic condition, infantile epilepsy. In fact, the Journal of the American Medical Association declared the connection a myth and nonsense in 1990. But before science caught up, public fear took over. Lawsuits related to vaccine safety surged, from just one lawsuit in 1978 to 73 lawsuits in 1984. The average claim grew from 10 million to 46 million. TV documentaries fueled mistrust. A group of parents even formed an advocacy group called Dissatisfied Parents Together, DPT, which evolved into the National Vaccine Information Center, which is still active today and is a frequent source of vaccine misinformation. By 1985, vaccine manufacturers were still liable for any unforeseen and potentially rare injury linked to the vaccines they produced. While a successful vaccine could prevent hundreds of thousands of cases of deadly disease, it could also lead to a few rare incidences of side effects that could lead to multi-million-dollar lawsuits. Manufacturers had difficulty obtaining liability insurance. The incentive for creating vaccines became highly unfavorable in the eyes of pharmaceutical companies. Low profit margins and lawsuits related to vaccine safety forced most manufacturers to cease production of the DPT vaccine. By 1985, only a single company made the pertussis vaccine in the United States, and the cost of the vaccine had tripled. Public health officials recognized the urgent threat. Without a stable supply of vaccines, vaccination rates would soon decrease, and the country risked a resurgence of serious preventable diseases. In response, Congress passed and President Ronald Reagan signed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act in 1986 to stabilize vaccine supplies and costs, limit legal liability for vaccine manufacturers and healthcare providers due to vaccine injury claims, and to establish a fair, science-driven compensation program for individuals who experience rare but legitimate vaccine-related injuries. The NCVIA established the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, or VICP, in 1988. VICP is a no-fault alternative to the traditional legal system for vaccine injury claims. It provides a fair, efficient, and accessible way for people to seek compensation, protects vaccine manufacturers and administrators from most liability, and thus encourages continued vaccine production, and it reassures the public that rare injuries are taken seriously and handled responsibly. So how does it work? The VICP is a no-fault system designed to fairly compensate people who experience rare but serious adverse reactions to vaccines. Injuries listed in a vaccine injury table are presumed to be vaccine-related, allowing those claims to be processed more quickly. Some of the conditions listed in the table include anaphylaxis, intussusception, and Guillain-Barré syndrome. Claims for other adverse events not included in the table may also be considered. The VICP is funded through a small federal excise tax on each dose of a vaccine covered by the program. Specifically, a 75-cent tax is applied per disease prevented by vaccines recommended by the CDC for routine use in children. For example, the trivalent influenza vaccine, which protects against a single disease, is taxed at 75 cents per dose, while the measles, mumps, rubella, or MMR vaccine, which protects against 3 diseases, carries a $2.25 tax per dose. The U.S. Department of Treasury collects these excise taxes and manages the investments of the Vaccine Injury Compensation Trust Fund. If someone believes they were injured by a vaccine, they or their lawyer file a petition with the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. The process involves 3 federal entities: Health and Human Services, which reviews the medical details, Department of Justice, which represents the government, and the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, which makes the final decision. If compensation is awarded, it does not necessarily mean that the vaccine caused the injury. In fact, one of the most important points to understand and to communicate clearly to patients is that compensation does not establish causation. Many claims are resolved through settlement, often without a definitive determination regarding whether the vaccine was the cause of the reported injury. If a claim is denied, the petitioner still has the option to file a lawsuit in civil court, but few do. That route is often longer, more expensive, and requires a higher burden of proof. The VICP covers all vaccines recommended by the U.S. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices for routine administration to children and that are subject to the federal vaccine excise tax. When the ACIP recommends new pediatric vaccines, the list of covered vaccines increases. The VICP covers claims from individuals of all ages if the vaccine is recommended for routine use beyond children, such as influenza vaccines, but it does not cover claims for vaccines that exclusively target adults, such as the shingles vaccine. Currently, no compensation mechanism similar to the VICP exists in the U.S. for vaccines recommended exclusively for adults. However, in 2016, the 21st Century Cures Act expanded VICP coverage to include vaccines recommended for use in pregnant women, and it clarified use of VICP funds to cover injuries alleged to have been sustained by both the pregnant women and their children who were in utero during the pregnancies. The current list of vaccines covered by the VICP includes DTaP, Tdap, DPT, TD, DT or TT, Hib, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, HPV, seasonal influenza, MMR, meningococcal, PCV, polio, rotavirus, and varicella. COVID-19 vaccines are covered under a different program, the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, also known as CICP. This program is part of the PrEP Act, which provides liability protection during public health emergencies. Because of the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, pharmaceutical manufacturers are largely protected from lawsuits related to vaccine injuries. However, this protection is not absolute. If a vaccine is not covered by the program, or if an injury results from misconduct, negligence, or failure to follow proper procedures, the manufacturer may still be held legally accountable. This careful balance between liability protection and accountability is essential. It helps ensure that manufacturers remain engaged in vaccine development and supply, while also upholding mechanisms to protect the public from rare but serious adverse events. Vaccine expert Dr. John Grabenstein explained, "Manufacturers are indemnified for unforeseeable adverse events. They are not indemnified for negligence." Between 2006 and 2023, more than 5 billion vaccine doses were distributed in the United States, and compensation was awarded in approximately 1 case per million doses administered. This is a compelling reflection of the strong safety record of vaccines. In conclusion, let's review the key facts from this video. Vaccines are held to the highest safety standards of any medical product, and while most side effects are mild, rare and serious side effects do occur. For those who are injured by vaccines, they can receive compensation through the VICP. Importantly, receiving compensation through VICP does not imply causation. It is designed to support individuals without undermining trust in the vaccine system. The VICP is also critical for maintaining the vaccine supply in the United States. And finally, while pharmaceutical companies are protected from lawsuits in cases of unforeseeable adverse events, they are still accountable for negligence or misconduct. As you engage with patients, it's important to emphasize that the existence of the VICP is not an indication that vaccines are unsafe. Rather, it reflects a commitment to safety, transparency, and accountability, even in the rarest of circumstances. By understanding the history and intent behind these programs, you will be better equipped to answer questions, dispel misinformation, and build trust with your patients. In turn, this helps your patients feel informed, supported, and empowered, reinforcing your critical role in protecting both their health and the health of our communities.